I have bought a new stock. I have bought 17 shares of this company, and I'm incredibly happy that I've bought this stock. Now, I have a little bit of a funny story before we get into why I bought this stock, to start with where I ultimately decided to buy the stock from. And then we're going to get into the bull case for the stock. I do want to make more videos on this subject because this is a stock that, as I get deeper and deeper into, it seems inevitable and it seems exciting. And it is not my original thought. I got this from a friend of mine. I don't want to say the name of the friend because then you guys will know what stock I bought. And we'll go from there. Someone in the live chat, as we're doing this on our live show, says, is it Spotify? It is unfortunately not Spotify. And I'll probably have a video coming out on Spotify in a little bit because I uncovered some new information. I do think Spotify could potentially be undervalued, but it is not Spotify at this moment. Okay, so before I tell you what the stock is, I was at a meeting in Cheesecake Factory. For those who are watching that are not from the United States, Cheesecake Factory is a pretty famous restaurant. I think ticker symbol is CAKE for those that want to check it out on the public markets. And I was at a meeting with an investor. Because I have a startup, Audia.io, in the description. Audia.io/register would be in the world if you sign up. Check it out. We are trying to essentially build the YouTube of audio. And in the early days, as we ended up raising about $330,000 from angel investors, and to raise that money, we had to have some meetings. And so one of the meetings I had was at Cheesecake Factory with a friend of mine who ended up, he wasn't a friend at the time. He was just someone, he's become a friend, but he is someone who was just interested in the startup. We met over YouTube. And he was interested in investing about $10,000. It was actually a cool little story. It's like a scene from movies. Like we walk in and he's like, all right, so tell me the deal. And then I go through the entire plan and he asked me some questions and I answer those questions, blah, blah, blah. And then at the end, he's like, all right, screw it. I'm in for 10K. And I'm like, all right, cool. We got that. He was like one of the first 2 checks we got into the company. Now, after we had that dinner, we go outside. He has a Tesla. We sit in his Tesla. I've never been in a Tesla or driven a Tesla before. So he lets me drive his Tesla. And I'm like, I better not crash this guy's Tesla because this guy just invested 10K in my company. So I hope I don't crash his Tesla. So I'm in his Tesla. We're chilling in his Tesla and it's super fun. And then at the end, we're talking about some stocks because he's also an investor. He's like, what is one of the biggest stocks you have? I said, I really like Palantir. Palantir is an interesting blah, 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 blah. And he's like, you got to check out this other stock. And I'm like, okay, what's that stock? And he's like, this is a stock that I believe is going to be a multi-$100 billion company. People don't really know about it yet. People don't really understand it yet, but it is something I'm willing to bet a lot of money on. And I'm like, all right, what is it? And he shows me a stock with a ticker symbol ENPH, Enphase. And I'm like, what is Enphase? And he's like, well, Enphase makes microinverters that go under solar panels. And I'm like, that sounds pretty boring. Why would I be excited about them? And he's like, because they're growing over 70% year over year. And solar penetration is only 1% to 2%, not only globally in the United States. And I was like, that's interesting. Now, I didn't buy. It was about $140 at the time. I didn't buy. I should have bought it. Honestly, it would have made more sense looking back in hindsight. But the stock ran up to about 340. Then it went down to 200. And I learned about Enphase so much over the year that I decided I would buy Enphase if it goes under 200. And it finally fell under 200 last week. I bought it at 183. It's already up to 211. It's probably going to come down, but like already I'm up 10% on my money. It's really, and it's cool to be part of a stock that is very volatile and that goes very heavily with the market. Enphase is one of those stocks that when it runs, it runs. Now, why does it run the way that it runs? I want to look at a couple of things and then I want to analyze kind of what's going on with Enphase. So again, Enphase makes micro inverters for solar panels. For those that don't know, the solar panel business doesn't really matter, right? Solar panels are a commodity. China makes a bunch of them. They're like 50 cents a panel. It's not that big of a deal. The micro inverters under them that actually allow the solar panels to be effective in the first place in terms of generating and creating technology are the hard things. And there's only 2 companies that really do this. One is Enphase, ticker symbol ENPH, and then one is SolarEdge, ticker symbol SEDG. Enphase just has a lot of different competitive advantages over SolarEdge. But even if those are the only 2 companies, those are the only 2 companies. The other companies that may want to make a cheaper microinverter may exist. It's just to be able to catch up to what Enphase is doing in terms of their vertical integration is going to be harder. Last quarter, Enphase produced $724 million in revenue, with 43% of that on a non-GAAP gross margin. They shipped 4.8 million microinverters, which was their flagship product, and 121 megawatt hours of Enphase IQ batteries. They're also getting into the battery business. GAAP gross margin of 42.9%, GAAP operating income of 157 million, GAAP net income of 153 million, that's profit, and free cash flow of 237.3 million dollars. If we just look at some of this growth, right? Q4 2021, they were doing $412 million in revenue. Q4 2022, $724 million in revenue. I mean, this is a company that is growing massively. It's at a $28 billion market cap. You can call that a little bit overvalued at about a 44 PE. But when it's trading at 44 price to earnings and it's growing close to 70% year over year, you should be willing to pay that premium, just like many of us were willing to pay that premium on Tesla. One could argue that Tesla is overvalued. But again, Tesla is doing things that deserve a bit of an overvaluation. Here is the man who I went to dinner with, who ended up investing in my startup, talking for the next 3 minutes about the bull case for Enphase and why it matters. He's going to compare it to Tesla here as well. He's also a very big Tesla bull, so he has no shade to Tesla. But I want you to just hear him talk over the next 3 minutes and give kind of like overarching thesis for why Enphase is exciting and why I want this honestly to be the number 3 position in my portfolio after Palantir and SoFi.
So Tesla is a great opportunity. I think he's right. I think Tesla still has, at least.
But Enphase is what, a $20 billion? How much?
Yeah. So Tesla's a $500-600 billion company. This is the thing, Blake. So what do you expect Tesla to do? Let's say it goes to 2 trillion, 3 trillion. So what is that going to be? It's 5-6x, right?
Yeah.
If Enphase does what I think Enphase could do, we're 25 billion or so, and it's 3% in terms of solar penetration. We've talked about this on our channel on Freelancer Finance.
Yeah.
If it's 3-4% solar penetration, and Enphase gets to 20% solar penetration over the next 10 years, right? What happens to a company like that owns the things under the panel, the batteries, the energy, the verticals in your house, the charging, like all that stuff? What happens when they own a lot of that? Aren't they worth more than 20 billion? Isn't it more than a 5x? That's what I keep going back to. You know what I mean? So yeah, Tesla is an amazing opportunity. I agree with him.
And I go to 200 billion to 10x. That's it.
Well, maybe that's possible, but you saw what Tesla did, right? They came out with a car, and now they're going into energy.
This part of the Tesla comparison is actually really cool here, what he says about what Enphase could do.
And solar and selling power walls, selling mega packs, doing semis, doing AI. That wasn't in the beginning of Tesla's plan. Like day one of Tesla's plan was not that, right? Yes. So there is a bull case for Enphase, and we've talked about it before. I'll say just real quick that Enphase might be doing this vertical integration of energy and also being the center for distributing energy and selling it. So they're doing something similar to what Tesla's doing in terms of selling energy. Did you hear about this part that Tesla's doing? I forgot what the name of the program is. Keep forgetting. Maybe someone in the comments can mention what it is. But Enphase is doing similar items. They're going vertical in the energy business. And you got to think about it. What is the energy business worth? If you're killing all these oil companies, right? All these coal plants, if you're actually destroying those people, or they have to buy from you to install it in their plants, one or the other, right? Has to happen.
Right.
If this is happening, how much is that worth?
Now, I want to speak on that for a little bit. This is a big deal. The energy business is worth a lot, and we know that. But in particular, the dying oil and gas business, and again, it's not dying, I would say, at least for another 40, 50 years. Oil and gas will be here for a while, but things will start to transition. And as things start to transition, there will be winners that take advantage of that transitioning. Tesla is one of the big winners when it comes to EVs, and Enphase just might be one of the big winners. It's already won. If you look at its stock price from 2017, it was at 65 cents. It was a dying company in 2017. And from 2017, it is 200 something X right now, because now it is $200. And it's been able to show that there's a less than 2% solar penetration just in the United States alone. Everyone's going to want to have solar. Eventually it's going to happen, even if you get to 10, 15% solar penetration. And Enphase is one of 2 companies that is making the most valuable part of the solar panels in the first place, and then can vertically integrate into batteries and other types of energy storage. They don't have to beat Tesla, but you're talking about something that can very easily 5 to 10x over the next decade, or even closer than that if they're able to execute. They've already 200x, right, since 2017 on a business that has not even touched 2% penetration. And that's why Enphase to me is very exciting. And I'll make a similarity between it and Palantir in a little bit.
In my opinion, it's hundreds of billions of dollars. So Enphase,
and this is all from the microinverter thesis, correct?
Right, because they're vertically integrating. It's not just the microinverters, it's also the batteries that they're doing. They're going to start selling power or being the distributor for other people selling power. Like my house will have solar with Enphase, another house will have solar with Enphase. A guy without Enphase or a guy without power, well, he's going to want some power. So the power plant is going to have to buy some energy from me or this other guy, a little bit from me, a little bit from the other guy, take it from my batteries, take it from my car. Who's getting that power? The guy who doesn't have that stuff or who needs it. And Enphase is probably going to make a little spread on it because they're now the middleman for distributing that power. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
So they're going to make contracts eventually. This is my bull thesis, and maybe Johnny Boy agrees. They're going to be the distribution center with power companies that will buy energy from Enphase because too many people will have solar on their roofs. And anyone who thinks everyone won't have solar on your roof, you're crazy because the cost of solar is on a vertical decline straight down. So meaning the price, the cost per watt, all of that is declining super fast. Within a decade, it's going to be done. Nobody's going to be talking about gas lines to your house. It's all going to be heat pumps. It's all going to be electric in your house, electric stoves.
So this is the most obvious stock you've seen in your entire life.
Just super obvious that this is happening. And anyone who doesn't see it, I don't know. You're just not looking hard enough.
When did you first start? So this is really exciting to me on this argument in general that solar is increasing, that more people want to adopt solar. Now, I know this firsthand because my dad's one of the cheapest motherfuckers on the planet. And my dad was talking to me about, I think we should get solar. And I'm like, why? He's like, well, it seems cheaper. And so, given he's cheap, that's why it makes a lot of sense, right? If solar seems cheaper and the perception is that it's cheaper, and then the actual reality is that it is cheaper, and again, not everywhere, but in certain locations, you've got a growing demand from a hungry population, at least in America, that wants cheap energy. If solar is a solution to that, and Enphase is the only ones, and I really suggest checking out Vitaly's channel, Freelancer Finance. They have a ton of interviews with people that have actually worked with Enphase. I mean, they have analyzed the stock. They've beaten the stock to death trying to analyze every bull and bear case. And they started buying when it was $20, $50, $60. They were buying mainly during March 2020. Their conclusion is that this is one of the only companies that's actually doing what is required in the solar space. I know Tesla's there. There are some different similarities and overlaps, but Enphase in and of itself as a company alone, especially from a valuation perspective, you got to remember Tesla's 600 billion. So if you get to 2 trillion over the next 5-6 years, it's a nice 5x. Whereas Enphase is at 25 billion. To get to 250 billion, which if the energy markets in general are worth multiple trillions, to get to a $250 billion market, that's still a 10x from here, as it's growing 70% year over year with a relatively normal PE for a company that's growing that much every single year. At that point, Enphase becomes exciting to me. I have 17 shares, hoping to get this to 100 shares by the end of the year. We'll see if we can get the dip. Again, it's at 210. I don't want to buy it above 200, so I'll like to see it retract to the 180s. We'll see if the Fed actually knocks it down a little bit with their 25 basis point hike today, but they're probably not going to knock it down because 25 basis points will have the market rally. But overall, I'm very excited about Enphase. I have a bunch of interviews. If you type in Amit Enphase on my channel, I want to do more interviews and get more deeper into this because Enphase seems pretty exciting. So that's the new stock that I bought, and hopefully we can make this a top 3 position in the portfolio. Oh, real quick before I go on this, Palantir and Enphase. If the market for data and analytics and AI applications is growing exponentially, which is what we're seeing in the AI space. I mean, Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA yesterday, said that the Apple iPhone moment for AI is here today. If that's the case, then if that is also the case for energy, meaning it is a growing market exponentially year over year, more and more demand for energy is needed, more and more applications for energy is needed, then this is where I see the similarity. Palantir has not hit its S-curve yet because that market has not fully matured. And when it does mature and Palantir is the inevitable winner, Palantir could really benefit from that. If the inevitable winner in energy is, a couple of players, Tesla being one of them, SolarEdge, Enphase, then you've got a stock that's in the right positioning. And that's another thing I want to do with my investing over the next decade is I want to pick a stock that's in the right place at the right time. Enphase seems to check the boxes of being in the right place in the right time, less than 2% solar penetration. That market is growing exponentially. Enphase making one of the most, vital things that are necessary in terms of microinverters and really having little to no competition and being able to do that at scale. Then you've got a stock that probably is going to be doing well.